Hello dear viewers on SSBC, welcome. My name is Majur Cholkor from Jongle Estate. This week we'll be talking about the affairs of youth, and we'll be looking at the perception of South Sudanese on the engineers of South Sudanese who graduated, especially the students who graduated from different universities in South Sudan and outside of the country in the technical field, especially in engineering. How do you perceive them? How do you understand the engineers in South Sudan? Are they given the job opportunities after their completion of the courses from their various colleges or universities of studies? This is what we'll be finding out from my guest this time. I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humble having you, Mr. Engineer Ayuen Abraham Willit, on this show in Jongle Estate. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Majur.
Yes, let's start with you. You are an engineer, and the people of South Sudan, the viewers on SSBC, would love to know who is you.
Yeah, well, I'm called Ayuen Abraham Willit, a citizen of South Sudan, and a graduate in civil engineering. First of all, I did ordinary diploma in civil engineering and proceeded also with higher diploma in civil engineering and concluded the Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering. That's all about me.
Good. You're welcome. It's my pleasure having someone like you in my show in Jongle Estate and in South Sudan. We are blessed with people like you who are engineers, who pursue these courses of engineering from different universities. Now, let's find out from you. When did you graduate from the university?
Well, I graduated 6 years back. That was 2013 with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. And in addition to that, I graduated sometimes with other papers. That was 2006 and 2012. So I concluded with my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 2013.
Which university was that?
Deji University.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And right now, South Sudanese are blessed having you once again. Let's know that you are based in South Sudan and in Jongle Estate in particular. After your graduations, currently, are you working?
Well, I do work, but not commonly because I work based on contract. When I get a contract, I do it. Currently, I'm not working.
Okay. We'll come and find out from you why are you not working, and you are a graduate. And let's find out from you, what do you think, what was the reason why you went to school and studied engineering?
Well, engineering is a very good course. It has two things. One, it has a practical part of it, which I appreciate. It is highly paid. So those two things made me to do engineering.
If we look at the situation in South Sudan, what comes to your mind about the perceptions of South Sudanese on you, those who study engineering, either within South Sudan and outside of the country?
Yeah, well, South Sudanese are very funny and they have a lot of uniqueness in them. As South Sudanese are not contented with their engineers. And the reason is well known by them. And to go straight to the point, we graduated with most of the Ugandans because we studied in East African universities with the same Ugandan who followed us to South Sudan. And they are being favored, given the job, based on what I don't know, because it will really be known by the client who look for the engineer to do his work. Engineering is not about moving with tools, because there are most of these engineers who move with tools, and if you happen to see them, they have their tools in their hand, you may think they are engineers, but they are not. If you are an engineer, a competent engineer, you cannot leave your country and come and work with a tool in another country.
So do you mean when you start working, you did not carry the tool?
No.
So what were you using?
Well, we might be having things that really identified how we do our work. Like if we make a poster that shows this is an engineering company or so and so is an engineer. So the rest, the client who is looking for what to be done to him or her will automatically call or come to the office. Then moving with the tools to be called an engineer on the street.
If you look at you, the South Sudanese engineers who graduated with bachelor's degrees, and the work that other foreigners are doing in South Sudan, do you think it is the same thing?
Yeah, it might be same and sometimes not the same. One, most of the foreigners that are doing a lot of work in South Sudan are not qualified engineers. They're either masons, carpenters, craftsmen, or technicians. Because a qualified engineer from any developed country cannot risk his life to come and do engineering work in an insecure place. As a competent engineer in your own country, you can either create your own job than to come and work in an insecure place.
Using the three terms, or maybe more than that, the mason, the technician, the craftsman, and the engineer, what do you mean?
Well, a craftsman is someone who does practical work, or maybe who goes to a vocational school to do a training for 6 months, 9 months, or 1 year, and maybe come out with a practical kind of work with no other experience of how engineering work is done. As well, to the technicians are these people who do diploma in some colleges, but they could not design a structure. They could not, because you know, in a structure, a long structure, there are many things you design, and those ones are not done by technicians. You design for there are 3 loads. One is a dead load, another one is a wind load, another one is a live load. So a live load is people who are entering the building. You have to calculate for them, for the load of these people. Then the wind, if the wind can blow the whatever, then all those ones cannot be done by those small men. They are engineers that does that.
Okay.
But if you don't have those engineers on ground, then the work that might be done will not be incomplete. And that's why you see a lot of structures in South Sudan collapse.
Okay, we'll come into that. But looking at, you talk of being to school because of the high pay of the engineering course. And this might be the reason why South Sudanese fear you, South Sudanese engineers, because maybe your quotation might be that very high. So what can you say about the way you judge the South Sudanese
the quotation can be very high, but
the work might be very low.
The work can be very quality, because they normally say cheap things are expensive. So you see somebody moving with trowel or any masonry tools on ground on the street saying that he is an engineer. You just go and call him to build for you a 5x5 house, then in less than a year it just collapses. And if you go for an engineer who is competent and he does for you that work with a high pay, then that work, that building lasts for 5 years. So how do you compare this? That's why we say cheap things are expensive.
So do you say that you, the South Sudanese engineers, are different from these foreigners in terms of engineering?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, that these so-called foreigners or whatever, who are here within, who come to South Sudan are not competent. So when you give them your work, they will not do it, because they are either masons or craftsmen or whatever technicians. They are not engineers. There are no qualified engineers who come from outside to such situation.
It will be like you are decampaigning them and you want to be good people. Can you prove something good that you as South Sudanese have done better than what they do?
Well, I may not disapprove them that way, but if I can refer you to some companies, South Sudanese companies like Liberty, Commercial Liberty Construction Company, then the former BMC, the quality work they did may not be compared with this street kind of people who are connected with the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you say that you are qualified as South Sudanese to be given the work by the government of South Sudan or government of Jonglei State in terms of anything that related to the engineering work?
Yeah, well, I can refer you to what happened sometime here in Jonglei State, where the first storage house collapsed in the town, and it was because of poor quality, which may be, I may just analyze it in different ways, but if that work was given to a South Sudanese and it collapsed like that, that person can either be taken to court to pay for what the damage is, but still it was given to a different kind of a human being. He is nowhere to be found. I think there were no measures taken. In construction, there is what we call retention fee. That money is 10% of the total cost, and it is used. It can be after detecting the liability period. That might be 6 months or 1 year. When there is no defects on the building, like there's no cracks, there's no any other damages on the building, that's when that money is paid. And here, if you do it to these so-called technicians who move with tools, you give them the work, they do for you, give the complete payment. Then at the end of the day, if it collapses, where do you get the law and where do you get the person? Because you're supposed to give this work to a South Sudanese firm that is registered by the government of South Sudan with a known name, with a competent engineers. And at the end of the day, if anything's happened, then you can either take him to court or you use any way of a compensation. Or two, in construction there are agreements, but I have never seen an agreement document that is being made by these so-called foreigners with the other people who give them the work. So I am 100% sure that South Sudanese engineers are more competent with the street guys who move with tools.
Okay. Thank you so much, dear viewers on SSBC, for joining us. This week in Jonglei State, we are talking about the perceptions of South Sudanese on their own South Sudanese engineers. And with me is an engineer, Yuan Abraham Wildit. He's helping us to understand the perceptions of South Sudanese on South Sudanese engineer and why most of the South Sudanese engineers are not considered in engineering field rather than considering the foreigners. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome back, Mr. Abrams.
Thank you.
Let's look at the challenges that are hindering engineering work in South Sudan. What are some of the challenges that you think they are the ones affecting the engineering work in South Sudan?
Engineering work in South Sudan, or engineering as general, has a lot of departments. And I will go straight to the civil engineering that I did. One of the challenges of civil engineering work is the capacity to do the work. people lack capacity in the country. Two, the financial kind of, actually the financial kind of thing, because people don't have money to construct houses. Then last, people really don't trust each other. And that's why you see South Sudanese engineers are not given to work by their own brothers and sisters because of mistrust. So the biggest challenge here is the mistrust of South Sudanese engineers by their own people.
Okay. What do you think that South Sudanese can do in order for you, the South Sudanese engineer, to do your work?
What I think we can do is we sensitize the community on how good is engineering by actually do a lot of presentation on radios, TVs, and giving out the quality work that we've done before to other people. Because not all South Sudanese engineers that are not working. There are others who are doing a lot of work. So those ones can be used as an example to attract other South Sudanese to believe in their own engineers.
Okay. Now let's come back about the issue of understanding of how you people are being perceived by the community and the government. What do you think that you need to put in place as engineers in order for the government and the community to accept your work?
In most of the countries, in the developing countries, there is what they call, in Uganda they call it Uganda Association of Engineers. But here in South Sudan, I think they have one in Juba, that is Engineering Association. That Engineering Association should be the one to present all what engineering or what engineers deserve and how they can be addressed. And that is actually by telling the government that we are capable of doing ABCD work. I remember most of these oil companies take engineers from the University of Juba. I learned that, I was told, I've not seen, but I was told. That is to encourage that the native university to encourage other young people to go and do engineering. Because if you're contracted by these companies, the oil company, you will have at least heavy kind of payment. Yeah.
Okay. Before we come to an end of this interview, what would be your message to the people of South Sudan and the government of Jonglei State, the government of South Sudan, your colleague engineers?
Well, my last message to all is we should believe in equality work. We should have a trust in ourselves. That is by knowing that we have the capacity to do all the work that other foreigners are doing. We should also emphasize on the quality, because if we don't, like in Jonglei State here, if we don't have the town engineer that monitors what contractors or whatever people are doing is either quality or is not quality. Because here we need to consider three things. One, we should consider the workmanship. Then two, we should consider the ratios that are used in the construction work. Then three, we should also consider who is doing the work. So the three things I am telling South Sudanese to look for competent companies to be doing the work, because a competent company can do a right work.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ayuen Abraham Wildit, for making it to this show on SSBC in Jonglei State. Once again, I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humble having you on SSBC in Jonglei State. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much, dear viewers on SSBC. This week in Jonglei State, we have been talking about the perception of South Sudanese on their own engineers. And my guest was Engineer Ayuen Abraham Wildit. And Ayuen Abraham have been helping us, letting us understand why do South Sudanese go for foreign engineers than their own engineers. And this is because of the tribal line, the understanding, the political understanding of South Sudanese, and he appealed to the South Sudanese to employ their own engineers and encouraging the students who are studying, who are taking the engineering course in various universities, especially in the University of Juba and other universities in South Sudan and outside of the country, to making sure that they should not get discouraged in studying the engineering course. For me, Majur Cholkor and the team, I want to say thank you so much for following these editions of the Focus on the State in Jonglei State on SSBC, and join us again next week for another edition of these programs. Thank you so much for watching.